After the mess of last year, 2023 could be when we finally get big changes across the world on crypto rules. While we're waiting to see what happens in the US, though, other countries are already pushing ahead. The shockwaves from 2022's huge crypto scandals are still being felt everywhere. FTX, of course, is the biggest, and there's likely to be a lot more to come on that. But things like Terra Luna continue to impact markets and businesses everywhere, and a key part of this impact is on regulation. Countries everywhere are beginning to catch up to crypto and blockchain technology more generally, and they're setting rules to try and protect consumers. It's a trade-off against stifling innovation, however, in some of the most exciting parts of the global economy, and not everyone agrees on the same route forwards for these regulations. So with that in mind, we're going to take a closer look at what's changing in a couple of these different jurisdictions at the start of 2023, namely South Korea, Australia, and a look at the latest on what's going on in the US as well. So let's start with South Korea. The government there is already moving forwards with plans to define which cryptocurrencies can be called securities. That is a part of a move to determine which regulations would therefore apply to them. The move is part of an ongoing review of digital assets in the country and comprehensive regulations as well for the sector. The country's Financial Services Commission has said that it's necessary to minimise the uncertainty of determining whether or not one is a security. It added that it will prevent the possibility of law violations and it will protect investors. These guidelines basically say that blockchain-based tokens will be treated and regulated as securities if they have the corresponding characteristics that are already laid out for securities in the country's Capital Markets Act. The Alliance of Local Crypto Exchanges in South Korea have reportedly said that they will cooperate with financial authorities on this moving forwards. One big positive for them is that the government have said they will let these exchanges define which currencies are securities. Now, some have welcomed this move, suggesting it brings clarity that could help give the sector in Korea a competitive edge, and that includes experts like Lee Jang-woo of Hanyang University.
여러 면에서 이번 STO는 이제 특히 한국 같은 경우는 하나의 어떤 트렌드로 할 정도로 좀 파괴력이 있는 하나의 가이드라인이었던 것 같아요. 그게 확실히 국내 시장은 그런 유틸리티, 우리가 알고 있는 일반 코인과 증권형 코인, 토큰 증권이라고 표현하죠. 요가가 확실히 좀 분리가 되면서 그 각각의 생태계가 만들어질 것 같다라는 조금 생각. 그것에 대한 관리 책임에 대한 주체를 거래소와 발행인한테 줬다라는 거는 아직 명확하지 않은 상태에서 어느 정도 유연성을 줬다라고도 볼 수 있어서. 그리고
Now, none of this is hugely controversial. In fact, it's largely similar to what many other countries are leaning towards elsewhere. But by pushing ahead with this move sooner than many of those others, South Korea could gain a couple of advantages. On the one hand, it has the potential to influence the decisions that many other places might make afterwards. But by also giving clarity to the crypto sector, it could also help grow it. Here's Lachlan Feeney from Australia-based Labris.
So there are certainly some jurisdictions that are, looking at that and seeing that opportunity and wanting to set themselves up as sort of a hub for blockchain companies, for blockchain startups to be founded in and grow and those sorts of things. There's a second sort of race going on, which is in the wake of a lot of the sort of blow-ups last year. And so I think a lot of jurisdictions are afraid of being made to sort of look like fools.
Now, Australia is trying to do something similar. The federal government there have just launched a consultation on token mapping. The idea is to identify key activities and functions of products in the crypto ecosystem, and the government will then, quote, map them against regulations that it already has to see what works and maybe what doesn't. Now, Australia's politicians say their biggest concerns are keeping consumers safe from some of the most volatile parts of crypto. Here's Australian Senator Andrew Bragg.
My view is that we are in a global race for investment. We're in a global race to keep the investment that we have in the country, but we're also in a global race to show how consumer protection rules can be established.
Now, Bragg has already said that Australia has lost what he called the great race for crypto regulation. Clearly, he wants things to move faster, but not everyone agrees a slower timeline is necessarily a bad thing. Whereas an expedited process is seen as potentially helping places like South Korea, there are also benefits to not hurrying.
Personally, I think the longer the better. I think if they try and rush this or turn something around too quickly, it's more likely to go wrong than right. So I don't think the industry is in any sort of huge rush.
The elephant in the room in all of this, though, is what's happening in the United States.
From crypto king to criminal suspect, Sam Bankman-Fried's stunning fall has just gotten worse for him.
So now bankrupt FTX is asking politicians to return donations given to them by Sam Bankman-Fried.
In the aftermath of the FTX scandal, politicians are still trying to figure out how to handle making rules for crypto. There's a series of different bills supposedly being considered by Congress, but the SBF saga has cast a shadow over all of it. The sponsor of one of these bills, Republican Senator John Boozman, told Politico in November, quote, "Right now, people are trying to figure out why it has imploded. You don't really know what the changes are until you know exactly what's happening." Now, at the heart of the debate in the US is whether cryptocurrencies are defined as securities or whether some are defined as commodities.
So the securities, at least in the US, are regulated very differently, and it's probably fair to say more harshly than, say, commodities. So there's a lot of crypto assets that are very concerned in the US about being labeled as securities. And would much prefer to be labelled as commodities.
While countries elsewhere might want to push ahead with their own agenda, ultimately what the US decides probably matters more than anywhere else. Here's Caroline Malcolm from Chainalysis telling Forkast as much last year.
We've seen other countries move ahead of the US in terms of actually putting a defined framework in place for digital assets. Certainly the US, though, continues to be a very important player, particularly on the international stage where a lot of these global standards are set.
The issue with all of these differences is that it will likely leave the world with a lot of discrepancy when it comes to regulations governing crypto. And for assets that exist beyond the control of any one country, that can create opportunities, but it can also create potential problems as well. The bottom line is, change is coming this year, and it will fundamentally alter the crypto landscape for a long time to come. Alright, that's it from us for this video. Do like and subscribe if you want to see more content like it, and please let us know what your thoughts are on regulation and what's happening in the US and Australia and elsewhere in the comments below or wherever you're watching this video.